Welcome to Cox OC Connection. I'm Lacy Kelly and I'm your host for Cox Civic Connection, a segment where we visit with your civic leaders. Today we have with us Assemblyman Don Wagner of the 68th Assembly District, and that district includes eastern portions of the county, including Villa Park and Lake Forest, and portions of Irvine, Anaheim, Orange, and Tustin. Assemblyman, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Lacy. Good to be here.
So while your district is limited to just to Orange County, your district is diverse and it's a little different from the one you had in 2010 when you first got elected. So my first question is, how do you incorporate the various interests of your constituents in that district and help them to know that you're bringing their interests to Sacramento when you vote?
Well, what I try to do is get out into the community as much as I possibly can. When I first got elected in 2010, as you say, it was a very different geographic district, and I made sure I did community town halls, community coffees, made sure I was out at Chamber of Commerce events, Rotary clubs, exchange clubs. All of that in the old district is the same sort of thing I do in the new district. I try to get out into the community, let folks know who I am, what I'm trying to do, and more importantly also hear from them and what's of interest to them for me to take up to Sacramento.
What are some of the, just a follow-on question, what are some of the differences you found from one district to the next that you might highlight?
The differences are more geographic than they are in any particular, say, ethnicity or issue of interest. I used to have, for example, I had Newport Beach. Perhaps in Newport Beach there's a little bit more of a concern for some environmental issues as they live on the coast. Those aren't issues that generally resonate up in Anaheim Hills, for example, or in Orange, two of the new areas of my district. Not that they're unimportant, but they're not forefront in people's minds. But issues with respect to California's economy, whether or not we are business friendly, and we are not, whether or not we're regulating too much, and we are. Those are issues that resonate in the new district, in the old district, and indeed throughout the entire state.
Okay, so there's some similarities too. Okay, well, one of the things that always fascinates me is your time commitment and how legislators balance their lives with their commitment. I've been on that Monday morning, 6:45 Southwest flight up to Sacramento, and just accomplishing a day and coming home is pretty taxing, and you do this every week. How do you balance that with your family and home demands? Then you come home and you visit with your constituents. You got a lot on your plate as a civic leader. How do you balance all that?
Well, first of all, you got to realize that that was part of the job that I signed up for. So it comes as no surprise. Monday morning, we're all on the plane together and we're heading up to Sacramento. Generally Thursday afternoons, we're able to come back, which gives us Friday and the weekends in the district. Fortunately, I am at a place in my life with the kids either in college or out of the house now, that those kinds of demands that a lot of my constituents have on their daily lives aren't there any longer for me. But it does wear you down. It does somewhat be a bit of a drag on the week to know you have to get up every Monday and come back every Thursday, but that's the job we signed up for. Mm-hmm. Just try to, when you get home, I always try to set aside Sunday if I possibly can. So I've got one day at home. And then the other thing to just keep in mind is, as I say, when I'm doing these community coffees, I'm doing these town halls, I'm out in the community trying to get re-established or not lose touch with and connection with the folks in the district. So I try to balance realizing that I'm from here, I only work in Sacramento.
Well, and I'm guessing your constituents would really do appreciate that. So you're vice chair of two committees, Judiciary and Long-Term Care, mm-hmm. and yet you're in an environment where you, although considered, I think, kind of a rock star in the Republican Party, have limited impact because of the Democratic supermajority. How do you get things done in this situation and ensure that your district's voice is heard?
Well, the first thing you have to do is make sure your voice is heard. I am not afraid to speak up on the assembly floor when I see a bill or an idea that's going off in the wrong direction. I'm not afraid in the committees where I am the vice chair especially to speak up, but I also serve on both the Budget and the Appropriations Committee, which are the two key fiscal committees. Not afraid to voice my opinion and let the Democrats who really do run Sacramento know what I think and know what my constituents think. So you've got to be willing to take the fight into the belly of the beast. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is that there are lots of problems in this state that don't break down on partisan policy lines. To take an obvious one, water. That's a north-south divide, not a Republican-Democrat divide. There are many other examples, especially that I see on my Judiciary Committee, that don't break down along partisan lines. They're good government issues, and trying to work on those, trying to work constructively with my Democrat colleagues, not sticking them in, needles in their eyes and poking them and giving them grief for some of the bad ideas, but looking for constructive ways to work with them. Do that, you can get along in Sacramento, and more importantly, do that, you can be successful up in Sacramento.
And that's good to hear too, because there's so much polarization. So I think anybody likes to hear someone who's trying to work across the aisle on the key issues that can have some commonality, I would guess, right?
Right.
Okay. You were one of the vocal opponents of Assembly Constitutional Amendment 8, which changed or sought to change the voter approval threshold from 2/3 to 55% for local governments to incur bond debt for public improvement projects. That did not pass, but you were, again, vocal about it, and wondering what your thoughts are with the elimination of redevelopment agencies and in lieu of bonds, which I think you've likened to a tax, and out-and-out taxes. What are some of the things that you think local governments can do to replace that funding for public improvement projects?
That's a great question. I think the first thing to focus on is the need that was supposedly expressed with that constitutional amendment, with that ACA, was that, well, we can't get these bonds passed, and we can't get new taxes if we have this requirement that's so much more than just a simple majority. Historically, that's not true. If a local government is able to make a compelling case to the local citizens that they need to do something, and our own local Measure M is a great example of that, you can get the kind of vote you need to implement these taxes and these bonds. The locals need to say that's the right use of our money, and we approve of that, and we can watch our local electeds. If they spend the money the right way, great. If they don't spend the money the right way, then we have some recourse. So that remains an option on the table for local government. But the other thing I would say is that if local governments would get back to where we were several decades ago, and if the state would get back to where we were several decades ago in trying to be much more business friendly and user friendly, we wouldn't need to come up with all these kinds of new gimmicks that are being talked about. I'll give you just a quick example. I won't name the city in my district, but there was a city in my district where a small business owner who had a manufacturing plant, yes, we still have a few in California, not many, wanted to expand. That's a great thing. He tried for months and months and months to get the necessary approvals from the city to get it done. He couldn't get the approvals. He finally says he went to Henderson, Nevada, and within half an hour of hitting the front door of City Hall, he had the assistant city manager in his rental car driving him around town saying, on this corner we can do this, and over here we can do that, and here's something else you want to consider. Tell me why our local cities can't be that user-friendly. Tell me why they can't streamline their permitting processes, make sure that the regulatory environment is much more conducive to business. Do that and get us back to where we were at the municipal level, at the county level, even at the state level several decades ago, where this is a great place to do business. Get us back there. You don't need all those gimmicks. We can pay for the government that we need and deserve.
Okay, so it's sort of a local economic stimulus is what you're sort of talking about.
I'd love to see the locals doing that, yes.
Okay, great. The next legislative session is almost upon us. What are your priorities this January?
Several things are coming that we need to keep an eye out. Number one, there will be additional efforts to reduce Proposition 13's protections, for example. We need to protect Proposition 13. There will be shortly a committee, my Judiciary Committee is having a hearing on privacy. We know that there are a number of bills coming from the Attorney General and other places on the subject of privacy. Well, I don't know what those bills are going to say yet. They haven't been put in writing, but I want to make sure that we are doing privacy, giving it the concern it definitely needs, but not overdoing it and not stifling creativity and entrepreneurship. So privacy is going to be a big issue that's coming down the pike this year. And then the other thing, you touched on the supermajority. one of the things and I think most of my colleagues will be looking at this year, Lacy, is to try to make sure that the Democrats don't abuse the supermajority, and by abusing the supermajority, abuse my constituents, their own constituents, and the good people of California who are looking for constructive solutions out of Sacramento, not the same business as usual. We're going to be trying to stop business as usual and try to be constructive.
Got it. Excellent. Okay. ACCOC has worked with you on a bill that would save millions of dollars at the city level and would allow local governments to reallocate some of those funds towards potentially improvement projects or just reinvest in their local communities. Can you tell us a little bit about that bill and how it's progressing?
Sure. Well, the bill dealt with a fee that cities were collecting at the behest of the state government, and it was only $1 for every, I think it was an ADA application. Only $1 doesn't seem like a lot. The problem is it was costing the cities more to collect the dollar than it was to, than they were actually making from it. So it was a good idea, it sounded like, to gather some information, but in practice it ended up being counterproductive. My legislation is to try to undo that, as I say, counterproductive piece of legislation.
I think you have a lot of local government leaders in Orange County that'll be real happy if that passes.
Hope so.
And residents as well. So my last question is, we're proud to partner with you as a lawmaker and have local electeds meet with you and sort of talk about what they see their communities need. And we're doing these roundtables with our lawmakers, and you're our first one. Tell us what you hope to take away from those roundtable meetings.
Well, those roundtables, I think, give me a great opportunity to, again, get more plugged into to my community. The local city councilmen, school board members, and the local government electeds, they generally, because they're here and because they're elected locally, really have a finger on the pulse of the community that collectively we serve. So the opportunity to sit down with them, hear from them, exchange ideas with them is one great way I find to get back in touch with the community that I'm privileged to serve up in Sacramento. You know, it's interesting, Lacy. I can walk into a grocery store and nobody knows me, and that's fine. They've all got their own lives to lead. Sure, I've got to vote on a $240 billion budget, but nobody knows me, and that's the way it should be. My city councilman in one of my cities walks into the grocery store and everybody knows him. Everybody wants to talk about the issues important, and stoplights and city regulations, that sort of stuff. That's really the way it should be, but that interaction that they have with their constituents, with my constituents, when they share it with me at a roundtable like this, is an eye-opening experience for me. It's a great thing, and I appreciate ACCOC doing it in the first place.
Well, we're looking forward to it. I want to thank you for spending time with us today. I know you're a very busy man, and you'll be off to Sacramento again soon, so we appreciate your time.
Lacy, thank you.
Thank you very much for watching Cox Civic Connection. We will see you next time.